I thank the gentleman, my good friend, the chairman of the Rules Committee, Mr. Sessions, for yielding the customary 30 minutes to me. I rise today in opposition to the rule for H.R. 4413, the Customer Protection and End User Relief Act, which reauthorizes through 2018 the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Mr. Speaker, the CFTC plays a critical role in protecting market participants and our nation's economy from fraud, manipulation, abusive practices, and systemic risk related to derivatives, both futures and swaps, as well as in fostering transparent, open, competitive, and financially sound markets. However, H.R. 4413 contains several harmful provisions that impede the CFTC's ability to enforce existing derivatives rules and roll back meaningful reforms in the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. Specifically, Title II of this bill carves out the CFTC from the Administrative Procedure Act process, for which establishing regulations, which represents the most long-standing and broadly applicable requirements for federal rulemaking, and was written to bring regularity and predictability to agency decision-making. Furthermore, Section 203 of the legislation imposes burdensome cost-benefit requirements that likely serve only to prevent, delay, or weaken any rules that implement Dodd-Frank. Current law already requires the CFTC and other agencies pursuant to conduct economic analysis pursuant to the Paperwork Reduction Act, the Congressional Review Act, and Regulatory Flexibility Act. In addition, the CFTC is also bound by the Commodity Exchange Act to consider the production of market participants and the public, the efficiency, competitiveness, and financial integrity of futures markets, price discovery, sound risk management practices, and other public interest considerations under the supervision of the courts. The redundant cost-benefit requirements contained in H.R. 4413 will not only hamper the appropriate consideration and promulgation of new rules, but expose the CFTC to greater industry litigation. Finally, H.R. 4413 threatens American taxpayers by deregulating foreign derivatives transactions. Under Section 722D of the Dodd-Frank, the CFTC is authorized to oversee derivatives transactions that, I quote from the Act itself, have a direct and significant connection with activities in or effect on commerce of the United States. Section 359 of this bill exempts overseas derivatives transactions from regulation, creating a loophole in our system of regulatory oversight that could be gamed by large multinational swaps dealers. Just 6 years ago, derivatives trading related to the activities of the corporate structure AIG and Lehman Brothers nearly brought down our economy, and it did in fact cost every American household more than $50,000. I related last night in the Rules Committee that we were there, Ms. Slaughter and I, the chairman, Mr. Sessions, all of us, when Mr. Paulson and Mr. Bernanke brought to us the notion on 3 or 4 paragraphs and 2 pages that this nation was about to go bust. It's clear that derivatives transactions outside of the United States pose real risks to United States financial institutions. Yet instead of strengthening the CFTC's ability to effectively regulate derivatives transactions involving the foreign operation of banks, H.R. 4413 presumes that they will be governed by foreign rules, disregarding whether those foreign rules are adequate if the trades will import risk back to the United States. Moreover, this presumption can only be overturned after the CFTC and Securities and Exchange Commission go to considerable procedural lengths to make a joint determination that a foreign host country's regulations are not broadly equivalent to United States regulations. The futures and swaps markets are essential to our economy and the way that businesses and investors manage risk, particularly for farmers, hospitals, manufacturers, and certain utilities industries. While I share my colleagues' concern regarding issues affecting many of these end users, I believe that this legislation falls short of the goals of comprehensive Wall Street reform and ensuring that derivatives transactions do not contribute to another global economic crisis. I also said last night, yesterday in the Rules Committee, that I predict that if this measure were to become law, that we could reasonably expect that we would have the same kind of financial crisis that we did 6 years ago. Instead of creating new heavy administrative burdens, we should further empower the CFTC to be able to carry out its responsibilities, including those under Dodd-Frank. Just last week, House Republicans proposed to dangerously underfund the CFTC at 22% below the President's request, with an appropriation that will likely lead to either agency-wide closures or employee layoffs. This would make the already underfunded CFTC less effective at protecting consumers, end users, and investors. Additionally, because this bill retroactively reverses rules that have already gone into effect, and many of those that are in the pipeline, it increases uncertainty and costs to businesses and end users that will unnecessarily have the rules of the game changed on them. I simply don't understand this logic. Reducing the CFTC's ability to effectively oversee these financial activities only increases the likelihood that we will find ourselves in another potentially disastrous situation. Additionally, I would also like to take this opportunity to point out that several of my colleagues on the Financial Services Committee share these concerns. And it was pointed out by my colleague that this came out unanimously from the Agriculture Committee. It did, in fact, do so. But in the Rules Committee, we had the prerogative, if we so chose, to allow the Financial Services Committee to be able to make presentations that I believe, and in a bipartisan way, other members, particularly those of the Financial Services Committee, believe should be a part of this discussion today. However, this rule cuts them out of the debate. In fact, H.R. 4413 rehashes several earlier bills that Financial Services Committee members have previously voiced concern over, including H.R. 1256, the Swap Jurisdiction Certainty Act, and H.R. 1003 to improve consideration by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission of the costs and benefits of its regulations and orders, and the administration has also come out in opposition to the bill. We can't continue with more of the same failed partisan practices and effect a different outcome. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time. What transpired here is interesting. The Agriculture Committee had finished its product and then came yesterday to add provisions that in the final analysis dealing with the Securities Exchange Commission, and then my friend the chairman would argue that it's an agriculture bill. Clearly, it's smack dab in the lane of financial services, and they were excluded. And yes, Ms. Waters did come to the Rules Committee last night, and there's no requirement that she be here now, but what we could have done, we keep saying last night, it was late yesterday evening, what we could have done was let the financial services people participate in this debate. But no, what we have is we have the two people, the chairman and ranking member, who are given time with reference to this matter, and the Financial Services Committee is shut out of this debate. And that's just plain wrong, and I believe most people know that. Mr. Speaker, H.R. 4413 creates significant loopholes for derivatives by hamstringing the CFTC and undermines comprehensive financial reform. 6 years after the Great Recession, families are still struggling in this country. As of last week, 3 million Americans have lost their emergency unemployment insurance since it expired in December 2013. And I want to repeat that. 3 million Americans have lost their emergency unemployment insurance since it expired in December 2013. After my friends finish their reconstitution of their leadership this afternoon, I would hope their new then leadership would come down here and put something on the floor that will allow us at least to have a vote, up or down, as to whether or not people should receive unemployment compensation. Other things along with unemployment compensation that expired in December, the expiration of tax extender provisions that help individual families and small businesses invest are also expiring. And in the coming months, real soon, Congress is going to be faced with even more pressing challenges on our nation's highway trust fund, and it's expected to go 0.0 bankrupt, and the authorizations for federal surface transportation projects will also expire. The Export-Import Bank and Terrorism Risk Insurance Act are set to expire. The House still has 8 appropriations bills left to pass, and with each passing day of inaction on these items, we come closer to another economic crisis. Republicans and Democrats must come together to prevent this from happening, as well as to move our nation forward on comprehensive immigration and tax reform, raising the minimum wage, protecting voter rights, and securing equal pay. Let me go back through that. Securing equal pay, protecting voter rights. I'm personally tired of the suppression and oppression measures with reference to voting in this country. Why in the world would we want less people to vote than under the circumstances, people that should be participating in this great democracy of ours, and yet we have states, including my own, circumventing the process of voting, restoring, if you will, age-old problems having to do with voting rights. How about raising the minimum wage? Put something down here on the floor and stand up and vote for it or against it. But don't come in here and have everybody believe that you're moving this country forward. I predict for you what's going to happen. 28 more days, 27 more days are going to go through the rest of this process. There's going to be further obstruction from the majority in this particular House of Representatives. And then we will go out and we will have an election. And the American people will speak again to those of us that are in the House of Representatives. Most of us are likely to be back here. And we'll be right back here at what is referred to as a lame duck session, and we'll hold that lame duck session, pass some kind of an omnibus bill, and be off into the sunset for the 2016 election. Enough already. Stop pretending and have people know that we're confronted with real problems in this country, and it's this institution that has a responsibility to attend to them. The reauthorization of CFTC is both important and necessary. However, H.R. 4413 includes provisions that put the safety and the stability of the United States financial system at risk. Therefore, I urge a no vote on the rule, and I yield back the balance of my time.